welcome back to another episode of the Reinventing Finance Podcast. Today, I'm very happy to welcome Simon on my podcast, and we'll talk about Simon, Muffintech, AI. So I think we'll not be bored. Simon, how are you today?
Very good, thank you.
Simon, why don't you briefly introduce yourself and your company to our listeners and viewers who have not heard of you yet?
I hope that's almost nobody, but yeah, to those who haven't, I'm Simon, I'm 32, co-founder and CEO of Muffintech. I have a background in economics, worked in consulting for a while in different startups, and yeah, roughly 2.5 years ago, co-founded Muffintech. And as for many startups who now do something at least partially successful, we did not always do what we do today. Our hypothesis 2.5 years ago was that, okay, the future medium of communication is going to be chat. That was at a time where in the US and Asia, they already sold cars and houses via WhatsApp. So we said, why not sell insurance via WhatsApp? That's exactly what we did. So we developed our brand Muffin and did insurance advice via WhatsApp. That worked quite well, especially amongst Gen Zs, millennials, who prefer synchronous communication, but also amongst expats, since we offered it in several languages. But then we had a problem that I guess a lot of insurance brokers run into, which is finding qualified insurance brokers who want to work for you, who are multilingual, and especially in Berlin. So our only way out was basically automating this. And luckily, one of my co-founders is the total AI genius, built his first AI at the age of 14, and then, started building on the first GPT models, an MVP of our first conversational AI, specifically for insurance, which we used to automate large parts of the communication with our clients, both in sales and in customer support. And that worked quite well. And then, well, we got a bit lucky and had good timing because if you remember, end of spring, early summer last year, the whole LLM Gen AI wave hit Europe. And I guess insurance for once jumped on the train quite quickly as well. Everybody started talking about it. We had a model that was working. And yeah, we then got approached by insurance carriers, by large brokers, whether we would white label and further develop this for them, which is exactly what we are doing today. So by now we are a team of 20 people, still based in Berlin, and developed the first conversational AI specifically for insurance.
Two follow-up questions. You can decide which one you want to pick. One is, why do you think insurers were so interested in this? And second, let's start with that one. Why were insurers so interested with that, do you think?
I guess they saw a huge chance that Gen AI might be able to solve several of their problems at hand. I mean, there's a huge lack of qualified labor, which everybody's running into. Customers are very unsatisfied with communication, with long waiting times. And at the same time, insurance is based on a lot of knowledge, a lot of documents. So customer support, as well as claims, as well as sales, is relatively time consuming for employees. And I guess conversational AI is a relief for many of those pain points.
And when you say you kind of had a working model, what do you mean by that? What differentiates your model then or even now from, I don't know, getting some people to go mental on llama, or I don't know, whatever. It's like, or just, I don't know, getting a GDPR compliant enterprise license for ChatGPT, if that exists. I don't know,
Exists, yeah. I mean, we did not build our own large language model that at first. So ChatGPT or Llama, they are large language models. Building those costs billions. I mean, just Microsoft pumps billions into OpenAI a month. So that's not what we built. We are building on top of different models. And what we are building are modules and applications that make those models work in practice. What we build as well and what distinguishes us is an intermediate layer of insurance data and insurance knowledge. So where ChatGPT is hallucinating like crazy, so just giving plain wrong answers around insurance topics, our model gives the right answers. And since we have this as like an intermediate layer, if we then have use cases where insurance carriers, if they become our clients, add their proprietary data, so their insurance policies, their marketing material, any processes, our model already has a pre-understanding of insurance and thus can retrieve information a lot better, can contextualize a lot better. Yeah, and that's kind of what makes us unique.
Is that your right to play in this crazy, crowded, funded AI space? And
Yeah.
where you also, I sometimes, you see these, and we'll go to that a little bit later. You see these, oh, we've partnered with, I don't know, Google. I don't even know what they do then. We've partnered with Google or Microsoft or something, and you just kind of, to do what? I don't even know what they'll do then. But maybe let's start. Is that your right to play, that additional insurance layer, or are there other ingredients?
Yeah, this is one definitely. Then our understanding of insurance, since we come from the industry and understand the pain points and how processes works, is definitely another one. That's what our clients feedback us, that if they talk to us rather than directly to one of the large players, they have the feeling that we understand them and we can deliver on our promises because we understand their problems. That's definitely one. And then the third one, our approach is a divide and conquer approach, meaning that we subdivide problems or tasks that our AI has into sub-modules, and each of these modules is an AI per se, meaning that whenever there are changes or the LLMs in the background become better, or our clients need to make changes, or we want to make changes, we only need to make changes to one of those sub-modules, which gives us a lot more flexibility. And at the same time, we can basically retrace how the information that the AI is giving now, or the answer that it's giving to an employee or to a customer, was actually built. Because an LLM, as it is, so whatever Llama, is just a black box. You ask something, you get an answer. You neither know whether the answer is correct, nor you know how this answer was actually built. And with our approach, you can go step by step, retrace how this answer was built, and thus make sure that the model is not hallucinating, and making sure that the answer that is given in the end is actually correct. Because our model even tells you in the end, look, this information was retrieved from this specific document, from this website. So you can be sure that this is correct. And what you need in a compliance-heavy industry like insurance or finance is traceability, and is making sure that models actually give correct answers and don't hallucinate.
So are you then, so it's not just an audit trail. You then have, and this is probably a stupid question, but so you then have do you have like your own model that is trained, and then that different models sit below and different data points sit below, and depending on whether you get an answer from a, let's say, deterministic, let's say, item asset that's pretty clear, it's insured because this one said so. And I guess rather than, because you also don't, if you query Llama or something, you also don't know how they do it, but then you just query it with multiple questions that you kind of pull up, and you create that into an audit trail. Is that a layman's way of thinking about it, or?
No, that's actually true. I mean, what we are doing and what we believe is the way forward is to kind of combine deterministic steps, which you need for traceability, with the advantages of Gen AI. That's basically how our infrastructure is built, getting the best out of both worlds.
Out of interest, when you said you have 20 people, what's the kind of split? What kind of people make the magic sauce? Who's Just out of interest, because I think it might give people a bit of a glimpse about what kind of talent you need to pull together to make something.
Yeah, so by far the largest chunk is our development team, so more than half of our team, and they
Normal developers or specific AI? Are they like,
yeah,
what's
it's
the...
basically it's three categories. For once you have machine learning AI engineers, which kind of hard to find because the infrastructure and the whole technology is so new. But we got very lucky there and have amazing talents there. Also, they are training new talent now. That's one. Second one is data scientists, because I mean we work with huge amounts of data which we need to clean, to process, to transfer into vector databases. So that's very important. And the third part, which often comes a bit short, is front end UX and design, because we strongly believe that only if you make
It's a chatbot. What is that to you? No,
yeah,
I'm
but I
just...
mean, you know deterministic chatbots and how everybody hates them because nothing was
Yes.
working, because you didn't find buttons, because everything looked like Windows 98. That's why people didn't use it. And now if you nowadays use ChatGPT, it's actually fun playing around with, right? Because there's so much stuff to do, so much stuff to click on, so much happening around you, and that's exactly what you need. If you want people to interact with a chatbot and to like using it, you need to make the UX around it user friendly, and that's what we put a lot of emphasis on from the beginning, and we believe this is very important. Yeah, then we have a few product people who kind of are the intermediaries between our clients and the tech team. They basically translate insurance to tech, and yeah, founding people and a bit of sales and admin, and that's it.
What are the kind of top use cases you are doing with your partners, and how would you, and that might be different per use case, but how would you evaluate business impact?
Yeah. So we focus on three areas. The first one we started with is the whole topic of, let's call it internal knowledge management, or the co-pilot for employees. So we basically add the knowledge of our clients, so their internal data, their policies, on top of our model, and by this create their own internal chatbot. The employees can ask it any questions. So for example, whatever the customer is asking, his car is parked at his neighbor's place, is this still covered? Then the AI searches within the insurance policy, is this covered? Gives you an answer, traces you back to the document. So you save a lot of time and hustle there. This could be used by internal teams in sales, in customer support, in claims, wherever, because I mean, they all do a lot of research, look up a lot of information, because nobody can know it all. And I guess there, the metric that we would, or the main KPI is time saving of employees. So how much more efficient do they get? How much more maybe tickets can they work on per day? Also, how much quicker does onboarding work, which is a huge topic, because I mean, shortage of qualified labor in insurance is a huge deal. And if we talk to our clients, getting somebody ramped up easily takes half a year, if not even a year. Because they need to learn all the information, they need to understand where to find the information. If they now have a chatbot that basically answers them the question and redirects them to the sources, that's a huge advantage in time. Also getting people from outside of the industry, people who don't have a trail in insurance. If they get a co-pilot or an AI co-pilot like this, it makes it a lot easier for them to actually start working in insurance. Yeah, so that's basically the base use case, relatively easy and quick to implement. Only takes us a couple of weeks usually to go live with this, and we see a quick impact from the beginning. The second use case we focused on, which we are going live with the first clients now in September, is the whole topic of sales and lead generation. So there it's customer facing. So instead of you clicking through a funnel or you talking to a person who wants to sell you insurance, you basically talk to a chatbot. You ask questions, what products do I actually need? That bot can ask you for data, can then be connected to a pricing API, make you offer you quotes, and you can directly take out the insurance in the bot, or you book an appointment with a salesperson, but then the salesperson is already briefed and gets a qualified lead, which is kind of the holy grail of the industry, right? Getting qualified leads. People pay a lot of money for this. If you can generate those yourselves, that's quite handy. So I guess there the main KPIs would be maybe if it's leads generated, obviously, and if it's direct sales via the bot, then it would be conversion. So tracking the conversion of the bot against your standard funnels, for example, that you use. And the third case that we will start working on soon is first level customer support. So any questions, or the rather 80% of standard questions that customers have, also maybe reporting a claim, which is done via forms, and then you get incomplete information. Bot can make sure that the information is actually complete. Yeah, that will be the next topic, but that's rather the plan for end of this year, early next year.
Why did you start with the sales version before the customer support version? I have a hypothesis, but why did you start with one rather than the other?
Yeah, for once we come from sales. I mean, when we started as brokers, that's basically what we used it for ourselves. So we have already a lot of data on this, a lot of knowledge, and it was just quicker. Also, implementation is easier because all you usually need to be connected to is a pricing API or a pricing logic that the AI sends data to and then gets a quote back. Whereas in customer support, you will have to be connected to several endpoints, right? So a CRM, a ticketing system, and so on. And we all know how fragmented the infrastructure is, unfortunately, in insurance. So having standard products there will take a lot more time than having standard products in sales.
And how much is the point about the risk of hallucination, of bad advice, of it's just like a knockout argument, right? It's like, what about our liability? And then legal says no, and everyone's like, okay, well, legal says no, so we can't do shit about it.
Yeah, that's always a huge topic. That's why we build our architecture in a way that we get hallucination to an absolute minimum. That's what we spend probably in tech 80% of our time on, actually solving this issue, because we know it's an issue. But at the same time, people need to understand that AI is not a technology that has 100% certainty. That's not how it is built, because it works with probabilities. And there's always a slight chance that you might get the probabilities wrong. It's not deterministic. What you should benchmark it against is your best employees. And also the best employees make mistakes, right? And there are mechanisms, for example, in sales, if you want to make sure that the AI not actually makes a bad advice, or the client takes out the insurance on his own. What you can do is basically the client goes through the whole bot, then the data that was collected and the quotes that were generated are transferred into parameters. Those go to a landing page where the client gets redirected to. Then he can read through the information and take out the insurance on his own. And then you basically get rid of the liability there, because it's just like they going through a funnel and then having this take out your insurance now page in the end.
Okay. So the understood, the way towards the question is more intuitive, but at the end you convert it into some standardized self-declaration type format.
Yeah.
Understood. If you just kind of coming back, is that one of the main reasons why working with you guys is easier than working with the big ones? I mean, I was just And the reason why I'm asking is that there seem to be quite niche use cases, and some of the tech companies going feels like much deeper into certain use cases than you would expect, where they say we'll just do infrastructure and implementation configuration. That's a service business. That's that the consultants or enterprise companies, we're too cool for that. Doesn't seem, I don't know. I haven't checked behind the headlines, but just what's going on there in your view?
Yeah. So what we see is that the large enterprises pick large enterprises to test something, right? So, for example, Signal Iduna has a use case with Google because they're preferred partners where they try out stuff. I have no clue how successful it is and where they stand. They are all relatively clandestine about this so far. But if they were already successful and this would be in use a lot, I guess we would have heard of it. So I highly doubt that there's a lot of progress, and that comes from basically tankers working with tankers, right? I mean, Microsoft doing super specialized niche use cases, or Google doing the same, it's something they're not used to. And I also don't see them going there too much. They rather do the standardized ones. And then at the same time, there are so many medium-sized and smaller-sized insurers in Germany who will not even be able to afford with them, right? Because I mean, the standard package of working with Google or Microsoft will totally exceed their budget. And I don't see them going there. And maybe in the long run, that might be our sweet spot. Who knows? Maybe our sweet spot is not the top 5 or 10 insurance carriers, but rather the big chunk of medium-sized and smaller ones, because we can offer them a more competitive pricing there, or more targeted to their needs solutions, rather than having the standardized, costly one from the large tech companies.
Not just because you've mentioned it yourself. Can you talk a little bit about your commercial model, your pricing, and also maybe is there like a hurdle rate where you say, ticket size, it's not 5 million, but it's 50,000, 500,000, 5,000, just so people kind of get a sense, because sometimes they're like, oh, this is cool. And then they say, yeah, I have a budget of 100, or they're thinking, I need a budget of, I don't know, 2 million or something. So to kind of give some orientation.
Yeah, I guess that distinguishes us from the large ones, because we don't need to get in and have a huge contract from the beginning. What we advise our clients to do is, let's start with a rather small use case, get this up and running so that you understand the benefits, and then we can basically go into new use cases or new products from there. So we usually start at a range of low to middle 5 figures per year. That's usually paid on a monthly basis, and includes a certain amount of, we call it conversation. So it would be an equivalent to a customer support ticket. So from hello to problem is solved, that's a conversation. And then obviously the more this gets used over time, the costlier it gets, because it also generates more costs on our end. But also the more benefit you have from it, right? Because either your employees save time, or there are less customer support tickets coming in, or you sell more insurance. But getting started with us does not take up hundreds of thousands or even millions.
What are the biggest obstacles for you to work with insurers? And how have you overcome it, or plan to overcome it, or
First of all, finding the right people within the organizations is never.
Yeah, who would that be? Who do you sell AI shit to these days? Who's the recipient of that?
Yeah, that depends a bit on the use case. I mean, in internal knowledge, it could be literally any department. So there's no clear person that you sell this to. That could be the head of claims, that could be the COO, that could be the head of customer success. In the sales use case, it's relatively clear. That's usually the person in charge of digital sales or digital marketing.
But why
And
digital? Why not broker sales? Because I would have thought that that is actually a um, and I'll tell you why I've thought that broker sales is a you'll have broker sales, you have more repeat customers using your funnels. You have more unstructured stuff, and you also potentially have someone to fix the worst of hallucinations. Whereas, if I as a customer, how often do I really engage with my product to buy, and how do I then really appreciate it?
yeah, good point. I mean, it's basically the same product behind it. I mean, we could obviously also build this for the brokers because the end customer in the end is the same. That's just the experience we had so far. If we
Okay,
work the broker departments, it's rather a knowledge use case again, because brokers are a bit fucked up by waiting on the phone for half an hour to talk to somebody and then not reach any
totally.
weekends and in the evenings and so on. So if they get a chatbot where they can just ask questions around products, processes, and so on, that definitely helps them and makes them happier. And I guess that's where what many insurance carriers rely on, happy brokers. So we rather see the use case there.
Plus, and I think, it's just kind of thinking out loud. You see, obviously, the broker channel produces way more business than the direct channel. Yeah, you can have relative conversion, but it's plus, I believe, what you see with, at least in Germany, insurers have recently pulled out of broker pools because they deliver bad business,
Yeah,
comparatively. And so they'll looking at the direct interaction with brokers while still minimizing costs, seems, same with agents, really. Seems like an interest, a bit better lever, even though the other one might be easier to test again because you have less people involved. Otherwise you have training and you have people complaining, and it's from a change program. I think the other channels, there's more people involved, more opinions, and
true. But at the same time, we see a lot of insurers putting more emphasis on direct sales and online sales because
okay,
that's something that is in their hand, right? The broker business is always a bit out of their sphere and they have lesser grip on it. And at the same time, we see that Gen Zs, especially, so probably the clientele of the future, they don't really engage with brokers, right? They rather are primed on taking out insurance themselves or getting their opinion online or chatting with people. So if you don't want to miss out on that clientele, and I mean, that's going to be the customers who now turn 25, 26, which is the first time that you actually get them as clients usually. It's quite important to have an offer for them. If we don't even have online funnels or no chance of taking out an insurance, but by brokers, you might miss out on a huge chunk of
sure, sure.
that clientele.
But I mean, at the end of the day, I think you need to find someone who's looking for something, and this is not the same with any insurance department. But it seems like your route is to the kind of department heads rather than the digital transformation and CIO, CTO. I mean, you probably have that conversation as well, but they might have bigger fish to fry trying to get things off
And I
their
mean,
legacy platforms, etc.
yeah, and our plan is to rather start with smaller use cases. So usually the budget that the departments have
Yeah,
had completely suffice, and that makes sales cycles quicker because we know that
sure.
if we need to go through the C-level or the board level, get approval there, this easily adds a couple of months on top of the
Mhm.
sales.
So just kind of coming back, what are the biggest obstacles you think, that you face, when
Yeah.
working with insurance?
I guess one is general understanding of the technology. So everybody talks about it. Having in-house capabilities and knowledge around it is still rather scarce. So we not often see it. And you would think that a make or buy decision is a huge obstacle for us. We've seen it differently, that if insurers actually tried out building something in-house themselves with a few people, and then they only got to a certain point, and that point was not good enough for them to actually transform this into production, that's a great starting point for us, because we can then show them that you can get beyond this and you can actually get it working. But then there's already an understanding of why you should work with somebody like us and what the benefits of working with us are. And they've also seen the cost of building something in-house, right? Because I mean, if you have 2-3 people full-time on such a product for half a year, that costs you a lot more than working with us for half a year. Second one definitely is the whole topic of data privacy, concerns around UAI Act, because nobody knows what that really means. That's definitely a huge topic. We try to tackle this proactively. So I think we are the first AI company which got certified with an ISO 27001 specifically for AI in insurance. This helps a
Who
lot.
certifies you? Who has the expertise to certify you?
I don't know. I think it was TÜV.
Sure, TÜV. I mean,
They
okay,
would.
yeah. I think everyone. I think we've all went through these things and kind of go, but yeah, got it. Interesting. Different business. Good business. TÜV not.
Different business. But I mean, the compliance departments of the insurers, they have their categories, and if you have the certification, you directly go into a different category.
Totally. I mean, we have, and yeah, I'm making jokes about it. I went through our ISO, and you just kind of go, nah. But some things, they usually come up with something, and it just makes it's more efficient than every department kind of doing the checks themselves, right? So I get it. I just thought with, how do you go from cars to AI models? But I guess
I don't know. Also not my problem.
Moving on.
I'm very happy that I was hardly ever part of this, because that's also not my field of expertise, and even less my field of interest. So very lucky I got a good co-founder who got us through this.
Yeah, no, same. And I think but again, I think it's an important thing. I was just curious that it was TÜV. Anyway.
I'm not even sure if it was TÜV, to be honest. I was quite certain I saw the logo of TÜV somewhere on the certificate. It might just be that the whole ISO thing is originated by TÜV. I have no clue.
Yeah, okay.
No idea.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's definitely an obstacle. Third one might be insurers are a bit reluctant in being a first mover, or many insurers are, right? So you need somebody who gets the ball rolling, who actually starts doing this, and then they see that somebody is doing it, which means, okay, apparently from a data privacy perspective, it might work, or their officers said it works. And then the others might follow quite quickly, but we still don't see the huge adoption that you might expect if you go on conferences or read insurance newspapers at the moment, where literally 50% of the topics is Gen AI at the moment. But then if you look inside the organizations, it's still a very niche technology. This might change quickly, but I guess we need some first movers who actually get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was interesting when you kind of saw those slides as, where does, other than NVIDIA, obviously, where do a lot of the kind of AI revenue, and it was like to the consultants. And I think there was like crazy numbers about how much of the revenue the big consultants get from that, which is, not, it's fair enough. It's, if that is how it's like, if you need an AI strategy before you build an AI use case, then that's, I guess, how you go on about it. If that is how you need to prioritize certain things and how to map that into your digital transformation. And, I always just think, this is a perfect example of where just strategy processes go to shits, because it's so inside out, and you gotta leave some room to just be willing to follow certain opportunities is my view, rather than going, well,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
guess we'll pick this
and
up when we have our legacy thing transformed in 8 years' time. It's probably still around then, I guess.
yeah, I mean, if you already spend 100K on PowerPoint slides, there might not be enough budget to actually try out if this works in practice. But who knows? I'm a big fan of just trying stuff, and I mean, there are enough use cases that you can try internally without having to try this on your actually on your customer base. So that might be a good point to start and to try out something in a small scope. And that gets you a lot more grip on the topic than having people giving you seminar over seminar over seminar telling you how much this technology is able to do. But if it never gets into practice, was kind of,
I
where's the point?
I I haven't picked it up, but on LinkedIn, someone put a new name on it. And I think it was like, it's called venture partnering or venture clienting or something. And it's basically just work with startups, right? But they put this, but now it's in a strategic box, and it's like corporate venture or venture building, venture investment, and there's just venture clienting. And just kind of go, yep. I mean, generally speaking, I think it does make sense.
Yeah, any of those out there, please reach out to me, because apparently that's the perfect role that I'm actually looking for in a buyer.
Exactly.
Never heard of it, but if this exists, please reach out to me.
Yeah, but yeah, listen, I think, it's sometimes it's just easier to put things into boxes and not just kind of say, oh, we'll just try things. And it's like, how does this link to something else? And it's what you get with large enterprises. You get that hierarchy that wants to feel in control. So what topics did we miss, but should discuss, or anything
Yeah.
on your mind?
I mean, I might ask you a question.
Sure.
For one. Let's switch the
Well,
roles.
this is off script. This is off script. So this is where we cut. This is where you need to see the video and where we have a lot of editing, right?
Yeah. Where do you actually see large use cases for conversational AI, apart from maybe the ones that I already talked about? Or where do you think would be easy ways in a smaller scope to actually, yeah, get the ball rolling?
Yeah. So listen, I think those three that you've mentioned are, I think, the big buckets, that'll move things along. I think that on the sales side, as said, I think, simply because of the size of the intermediated, both agents or brokers, I think will have a a stronger pull because you have more power users. And I still believe it's a power user tool, especially as that goes. So I would, I would focus on, I would try to venture in that space and see whether that could help, because I feel that's where the market is pulling you. You have some positive headwinds, which I think are much stronger on the business side than you'll have on the direct sales side, just in observing those. I think what I'm realizing with this is, I think what might, because I'm trying in my own company. We're not an AI company. I made this glib thing, I think, a while ago, pre-corona, when AI kind of came up, and it's like, we're an AI company, but it's actual intelligence, not artificial intelligence, right? That was kind of my glib response to something, that I thought, it's like a blockchain moment, or something. And what I find with myself and internally, I think, there is a gap between those who would benefit the most from using AI, the actual users, and what, let's say, management, management founders, whatever, would like to get, because we're saying, why can't I get my developers 30% more efficient? That sounds like fucking awesome. Go. And they're like, what? I don't need this. This is. So I think what is quite helpful to glue this together is what someone called, I think these were called like sales engineers or support engineers. So people who understand the technology and what it can do, and they'll just observe people. And then they suggest, with the knowledge of how things work and how to improve things, and you almost kind of inject capacity into an already strained system. So to me, that I think is a really cool glue or lubricant to make this run a little bit smoother, because I think what otherwise, Gen AI in the beginning will increase workload because you still have your own stuff. It doesn't work exactly as you wanted it, and people are already, very few people go, I've done my stuff on, what's the time now of the recording? Midday Wednesday. I think we're still busy for the rest of the week, and most people feel so. I think that could be something that I think would be helpful, to assist certain people to get this going a little bit faster, which is, it's everything to do with people and incentives and priorities, and not so much with technology. But yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on it.
It's funny because one thing that we actually see a lot, that we talk to the, let's call it middle and upper management, then they try out the product, they give us feedback, but they would in most cases not be the end user, but like their teams and their staff would be. And those are the people who should actually try this and give us feedback. And those are the people that we need to convince, because as you mentioned, like this will, like with the niche that we chose, this is not a mass market product, but it's a niche market product where we need power users who use this on a daily basis and who strongly benefit from this. And to get this feedback, we need to get the technology out to the regular stuff.
Because I think it's the same thing, and that is why what I like about it has nothing to do with AI. It's kind of, if you had an engineer look at what type of repetitive tasks the business people are happy to do, they'll go absolutely apeshit. They're like, you're just copy and pasting this stuff. And it's because it's a different kind of mindset, right? And me myself, I use AI for certain things, but I not for others. So I would almost need someone to look at what I'm doing, because it's too hard for me to abstract. And I think getting that together, I believe, is an interesting proposition to drive that change. And then because I would, with your knowledge or with someone from your team, if you could just observe all of the stuff that people do that you're pretty confident that it would blow your mind. But I think you need to observe it.
Yeah.
And not ask people. That's kind of where I'm at. We're too small a team, but maybe that's something we'll offer together. Let's see. But that's something on my mind. I think that would help. Yeah.
Good point. That's, I guess, a perfect way to end this episode.
Cool. Is there anything else that our listeners or viewers can do for you other than reaching out and transferring money to cool use cases to you?
I guess that's mainly what I need. Transfer money to cool use case, please.
Cool. Simon, thank you so much. Have a lovely day. And yeah, I would say, guys, watch this space and get shit done.
Please do.
Perfect. Thanks
guys.
everyone. Bye.